Greetings, friends. So, this is a condensed version of the virtual council holding workshop. I wanted to go ahead and make an alternative video because we had a lot of really fun dialogue happening during our call, but it also felt like more supportive to just create a clear class and with all of the teachings for you to receive everybody who signed up and registered for this workshop. So for those of you who are watching this again, thank you so much for the 20 people that tuned in live. It was just a pleasure sharing that space with you. And some of the feelings that came up about just the feeling of being in a room, a virtual room together. People were reflecting that it felt already like a nurturing space where we could come together online, even if it wasn't in person, in this time where we are in like this idea of social distancing, but we don't need to be isolating ourselves. And one of the best ways that we can support one another in this time is to gather, and thank God we have these amazing tools that we can use and to do that, to bring people together to explore, what's happening for ourselves right now internally, and, what solutions are we coming up with, and what's being sparked, what's being ignited in us right now as we are coming to the precipice of facing new challenges in our world and in our society, and how are we dealing with those, and what ideas are popping up for us, and what new, maybe, it seems like people are getting more inspired to be of service and share their gifts in different ways. And that's something I'm really appreciating about this time. This pandemic is just like loving all of the beautiful offerings that people are like presenting and saying, hey, I'm offering a free holistic health class, or whatever it is. And it's just really inspiring to see how during this pandemic people are actually becoming more friendly with one another. And obviously in some cases people are like fighting over resources and things, but I'm noticing a general vibe of like, okay, wow, we actually have something in common right now. We have something that we're all dealing with, and it kind of breaks down a little bit of that like perceived separation or disconnection from each other. That there's like a little bit of an icebreaker even out in public situations that that we can all really connect with and relate to, which it's a strange thing, but even disaster and challenge can connect us, especially when it's something that we all are participating in. So we could have a whole conversation on that, but I wanted to get into sharing a little bit about some of you know me personally and some of you don't. So I just wanted to start by just giving a little background into who I am, and what makes me credible to share this information. So I've been holding counsel since 2013, and the first experiences I've had with holding counsel were during a mobile village of 30 people traveling on 2 buses from California to Panama in 2013. And we traveled, lived, and operated as a mobile community. And I think I was 23 years old then, and that was my first deep dive into holding community spaces for sharing feelings and sharing what's coming up and resolving conflict together, making decisions together, and deciding even what to do with resources that we had, financial resources, and coming up with solutions together, and working with different models like dragon dreaming and collective intelligence work. I also started New Mundo. I co-founded New Mundo, which is a global network of eco-villages and farms. And during the process of us having our startup, there was like hours upon hours of business meetings that we were having, creating our mission and vision and goals together, and co-creating the foundation of the organization. And so I had a lot of experience in holding spaces for teams and communities in a business context. And now I actually am also offering organizational development consulting for teams to not only bond, but connect around co-creating business goals and creating action plans and timelines. So officially, I had the beautiful honor and privilege to train with Joanna Macy herself, and some of you may or may not be familiar with her, but she's a deep ecologist and eco-Buddhist philosopher, and she's written about 5 books, and she has been one of the major thought leaders in supporting folks in transforming grief around climate grief and eco grief and disaster grief and pain for the world into action. And so it's been such a pleasure to be able to learn from her and integrate that into the work that I do. So over the years, I've held containers, everything from intimate 10-person conflict resolution circles, sometimes 5, in communities and teams and groups, and everything from that to collaborative events where masterminds, to 200-person retreats that I've facilitated and organized. So that's been pretty much my entire life for the past 10 years. So I'm super motivated to start sharing all the knowledge and experience I've gained in supporting others and being phenomenal leaders and facilitators, because we need you right now more than ever. So that is a little bit about me, and that kind of that brings me into sharing more about the why behind this work, the why behind counsel, the why behind what bringing people together. And so I'm getting my eco-psychology certification right now, and something that's being sparked for me is the idea of the historical context of capitalism and the fragmentation and the disconnection that the embedded disconnection that we've received as a culture and as a species, from colonization. So in the 16th and 17th century, ideas of dualism came, separating people by color, race, all of these things. And the whole idea was around how to really mold people to be better fit for capitalism, to use and exploit people and nature on behalf of profit, right? So a lot of that was around isolating individuals, isolating people, fragmenting us as people, as humans, fragmenting us from nature, fragmenting us from each other, right? And so there's a theory that I'm learning that's all about how back in the 16th, 17th century, there was basically 2 categories. There was society, which fell under the idea of the white male landowners, and then there was nature, and everything under nature was people of color, nature, women, witches, the natural world, everything that magic, intuition, anything that wasn't basically hetero white male. So this concept, and also the fragmenting village, and in creating power and hierarchy, power over, when we used to, I don't want to say we used to, this is generalizing, we didn't always, every indigenous tribe did not have this kind of like horizontal decision-making model per se. There's always been different forms of hierarchy, even in, some indigenous cultures. However, we have been disconnected from a sense of village and working together, coming up with solutions together, sitting in round tables, sitting in circle. And the reason this is so important to me is because this gives us our power as people to come together and build resilience through sharing our truth, through sharing our gifts, through being witnessed, through being heard in community, through supporting one another, uplifting each other, etc. So to me, this really connects with capitalism in a sense of they can control us better if we are all separate and not communicating and not in interrelation with one another. So, sitting in council and creating councils and being together in groups and in community, in my opinion, is a political act, is an act of sovereignty, is an act of taking back our power as people. One of the many ways that we can do that, one of the many ways that I like to teach and encourage people to do that. So that's my why for why I'm holding this workshop. Also, why I'm holding this workshop is because I see a need for this to be happening right now during this pandemic, during a time where people are just really losing it. A lot of people are freaking out and not knowing what to do with all of this anxiety and with all of this fear. I can tell you for myself, I felt a little paralyzed about what to do, how to give back, or even just how to take care of myself during this time. So I felt like one of the best ways for me to move through things is to be in service and to give back and to create and to be creative. And so a big way that I do that is through offering things like this, and through teaching and through facilitating. So I felt like this is a really good way to support the ripple effect and the fractal motion of empowering and encouraging folks to hold their own council circles for community to talk about what's going on right now in the world. And we're going to talk about some questions later on. But first, I'm going to get into the meat of it. So we're going to talk about the 4 pillars of council. Number 1, listen from your heart. Speak from your heart. Sorry, that was number 2. Speak from your heart. Number 3, be spontaneous. And number 4, get to the heart of the matter. Number 1, listen with your heart. So listening with your heart means actively listening. It means not listening without judgment. It means listening without ego. So doing your best to be fully clear and present and honoring of another person's sharing by being present, by offering your full presence to what they're saying. Number 2, speak from your heart. So this is just encouraging full authenticity and vulnerability and depth, and speaking from the place of your heart as opposed to your mind, because the heart is where we can really get to the root of whatever it is that is needing to be expressed in a person. Spontaneous is number 3, to be spontaneous. This is essential when setting up council, because you want to encourage people to not be rehearsing and preparing and thinking about what it is that they're going to say before they are passed the stick. In the virtual setting, which we'll talk about in a little bit, they won't really have time to prepare because the best mode of operation is to call on people. Plus, if you're thinking about what you're going to say, you're not listening and you're not present for the other people. Number 4 is get to the heart of the matter, which is essentially to kind of like cut away around what's really wanting to be said. What is the core, what is the essence of what's needing to be shared? And to cut away the context, the backstory, anything that's not necessary, and supporting people and being brief. This is a way for us to just get right down to it. So those are the 4 pillars of counsel. And then talking about creating the actual container itself. So we want to decide on the purpose of the counsel. Why are we here today? What is the intended outcome? So it could be, 1, it could just be to create a safe, a brave space for expression. 2, it could be to actually harvest ideas and propose solutions to community and global challenges. So, actually listening for ideas and things that can be done and implemented in the community and worldwide. And then number 3 is like actually to possibly create a community or collective action plan. Like, what can we actually do together? Whether that's virtual or physical, like get creative. So those are 3 different ideas or examples of possibilities of what the purpose of the council could be. And then there's like different topics and themes that the council could be about, which is what some of us came up with some ideas in the live recording of this, which I will share in a moment. So I'll just give you a moment to take all of that in. Give me a moment to take a breath. You might see me moving a lot. It's because I have chronic body pain and something that I live with and I work with, and you might see me doing this a lot. So, ideas for questions on a council during this time, during this pandemic that we're in. I wanted to give some ideas for that. 1 could be, what waves of thoughts and emotion are you noticing occurring within you during this time? So that's 1 question. What waves of thoughts and emotion are you noticing that are occurring within you during this time? What ideas do you have about how you can support yourself or how you can support community during this time? What ideas do you have about how you can support yourself and how you can support community during this time? What is the pandemic igniting within you? And what is this pandemic bringing up for you personally, locally, and globally? And the 4th one, what is this pandemic, what is this shifting for you in your personal physical reality? And what are you looking forward to during this time? And what are you dreading? So these are some ideas of council questions that you could bring to your group just to talk about and support people during what they're experiencing right now during this time. And there was also some more specific questions that people brought up in the live recording or the live workshop, which was, one of them was, how do we talk to our kids about what's happening? So this, so for that example, like that person that brought up that idea, he might be interested in holding a specific council for parents. So the theme or the council might be to invite parents, and the council could actually be about, that working with how to talk to our kids about the pandemic, or like what, things like that. So that could be a topic. And then other things people were wondering about in the live workshop was what are some ways that we can come together to become more resilient in our communities? So a topic of council could be around building resiliency, building future council about building future resiliency in our our community, or globally or locally. So you guys can get creative about leading and guiding questions for your council, the purpose of the council and the theme and the topic and the kind of people that you're going to be inviting to the table. Okay, so now we're going to get into like more of the structure of the council and like what you want to think about as far as before you do it to set it up. How many minutes for each sharing? So you want to think about, okay, how many people do I want to have at my council? 10 people, 20 people, 30 people. How long is this council going to be? How long do I want to let people share for? This is crucial. These little details are everything when it comes to facilitation. So whatever you do, don't brush over this part. Decide about that. And then you, as a facilitator, are going to want to keep really strict time. You're going to want to make sure that, people are not going on, and people are sticking to the time limit that you're giving. And sometimes, if someone is sharing like 10, 20, 30, 40 seconds over, you can let them finish their thought. But the difference between holding a virtual council and a real council in person is that in a real council in person, you might have like a bell that you can ring to kind of gracefully ask people to close their shares. But in the context of a virtual council, as the facilitator, you will have to use your voice to speak up, which can be a little bit more edgy and vulnerable, and might have to have you be lovingly confident, lovingly strict, and just letting people know. Maybe you decide that you want to make a sound. Maybe you sing a song, or there's a word or a mantra that you speak out loud that means, close your share. That could be a really cool option. Second, so we talked about how the structure, the minutes, the amount of people, timekeeping, and then this is the second thing is the role model. So you want to set the tone. How deep do you want people to go? People are only going to go as deep as you set the tone for how deep they're going to go. So I usually recommend you sharing first as the guide or facilitator, or maybe you have someone in the group that is experienced in council that would be open to modeling and going first to kind of set the tone for the group. Because trust me, if you don't have people that are in your group, which is okay, like the thing is we actually maybe want to have these spaces for people that aren't used to having them. Like that is great. And so sometimes we need to give an example of how to be vulnerable and how to speak our truth and how to be sharing our emotions and how to go deeper. Sometimes we really need examples of that. And so giving that theme, setting the tone would be is really important to do. Okay, third, explain how the order will go. So this is what I'm recommending for the virtual is literally like we're not in a physical circle, so there isn't an actual line in order that people are clear about what they're going, the order that they're going and speaking. And so as a guide, you might just go down the list and call names out. Or you could actually look at everybody's names or pre-create the order of the order that the council is going to go in, and you could send an email out to everyone beforehand saying like, this is the order we're going to go in. You know what I mean? Like that could actually also be an option instead of just like calling names out. But I've done the calling the names out thing, and that's been totally fine. Okay, so another thing to consider is how will you open the space? So opening the container, you might do a poem, you might do a meditation, you might do a breathing exercise. You might share an acknowledgement of the land that folks are on, or giving a moment for people to think about, the native peoples that were there before the colonizers, and just like acknowledging and opening up the space for all people. And you would invite introductions. You might encourage people to share their gender pronouns. Actually, not might. I think it's pretty essential nowadays to do that. So asking what they refer to themselves as: she, her, and hers, they, them, and theirs, or he, him, and his. Or if there's something else that they like to be referred to by. Some people just like want to be called by their name and not any of those labels. So think about how you're going to open the space, how you're going to close the space. Closing the space, some ideas could be: let's go around and share one word of gratitude. Let's go around and share one word of how you're feeling after this experience. You as a facilitator could share a poem to wrap up the council. You could do a collective sound together, an ah or an om. You could also do a little dance party. You could play some music. You guys could do a little dance party. The last thing that's a little bit more advanced, as far as closing the space, would be you as a guide or facilitator sharing the collective narrative of the story of the council. So whatever you heard the collective story to be, the collective feeling that you're sensing from the group, to kind of mirror back and create a summary share to kind of help the collective feel heard. And then I'll just say, like, there's like more advanced techniques to all of this stuff that I'm talking about, and like deeper harvests and deeper applications of how we can take what people are sharing and, you know, hold people accountable to like follow up, or ways to continue the conversation, or ways to actually create a structure for implementing some ideas that were brought up or solutions that were brought up. So different structures and ways to hold a space you can learn in my 3-day facilitator trainings, or sometimes I hold 1-day facilitator trainings, but I have a 3-day facilitator training that's coming up on May 8th through the 10th in California. And then that also extends to a 3-month journey and leadership and facilitation training for those of you who are interested in really going deep with this and making this more of your career and work in the world, to make it something that can bring you a livelihood and be lucrative for you as well. So just to kind of like put that in the mix here, most of this stuff is just super intro, and there's a lot more to learn, and a lot deeper knowledge and experience and understandings than what I'm sharing. Okay, another part of the structure of the council is making sure to open up with setting agreements. So you want to go through agreements, and I'll share a few of mine. And I'm sure as facilitators have your own agreements, and you can also source them from the group if anyone. I usually like asking, does anybody else have any agreements that they'd like to bring in? A few of mine are let's create a brave space, a feeling of non-judgment, a space where folks can feel like courageous to share things that they may not normally share, to really go deeper than they may normally go, so that they can really get the most out of the experience. Self-care, so honoring self-care, so what folks need to do to honor themselves, if that means that in between a share they need to step away to use the restroom or drink water, whatever that is. Active listening, it's kind of like one of the pillars of councils, listening from the heart, but active listening is just also just really important to reiterate in the agreements. Confidentiality is a huge one as well, so putting that on the agreements. And then speaking from the I, so owning your own experience. Speaking from the I in I statements instead of like, when you feel so angry because, Trump is saying some dumbass shit on the media, when you feel that way, it's like, okay, so that's not speaking from the I. Speaking from the I would be, when I heard Donald Trump speak some dumbass shit on the media, I felt angry and frustrated, and that would be an example of speaking from the I's and not speaking from the I's. So you can give your own examples of that. It's a great agreement. Brevity, that's also in the 4 pillars, getting to heart of the matter. And yeah, so those are some of the agreements. Encouraging you to come up with your own. So part of the structure section of this workshop, I wanted to also offer a specific poem that I like for encouraging the vulnerability and encouraging the emotions to be shared and to be expressed, and to honor all things that need to come up in a space. And so I like this poem called The Guest House by Rumi, and it's pretty popular, so imagine some of you know it, but I'm going to read it. Okay. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes, an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house, empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Okay. So that was called The Guest House by Rumi. And it's a beautiful poem to bring in as an opening to your council, just like encouraging people to honor whatever it is that they need to share and whatever it is that's coming up for them. Yeah. So I just have one final section of this workshop today, and that is the technology piece of this, which is a big part of it, obviously. But I wanted to leave it for last because I know so many of us are pretty technologically savvy already, but wanted to talk about some free options and some paid options and differences, and then talk about a little bit about kind of how to spread the word and how to get people enrolled, things like that. So a couple of free options. Google Hangouts holds up to 100 people. That's a free option for doing the council. The downsides to that, I think it's a little bit harder to record, but for this example of council, you wouldn't necessarily want to record it because it's more of a safe, brave space for vulnerability, and there wouldn't necessarily be, unless you were hosting something that was more like logistical and practical, then you might want to record it. But there's a way to record Google Hangouts through doing a live YouTube video. And then, so one of the things you're going to need to do is create a sign-up form, a registration, a way for people to register for the council. So you can do that by creating a Google form, which will convert the sign-ups into a spreadsheet, and then you can manually copy and paste your list of email sign-ups into an email, a regular email in your inbox, to compose a message and send people the link to join. Then there's the paid option, which is MailChimp because MailChimp's feature of being able to create a sign-up form and have people register for a specific list that then automatically sends an email to them is, I believe, a paid option now. So it's worth having if you have a brand or you're thinking of building a brand or continuing to do this. It's worth investing in MailChimp to be able to utilize the features, because it's like so much more efficient. But if you're just planning on doing one council for this right now, for this time, Google Drive form registration and Google Hangouts will be a good option for you. Zoom, I believe, is 40 minutes free with a group of people, which might not be enough time for a council, most likely. So you would probably need to pay for Zoom if you wanted to use Zoom. The one cool thing about Zoom, however, is that it offers the feature of doing breakout groups. So if you wanted to have half of it be a council and half of it be partner sharing, you can actually have people break out and share one-on-one with each other, which I really love to do in a live setting. Adds a lot of dynamic connecting and just, dynamic ways of engaging people in conversation, bringing about more depth and power and inspiration and energy. And then there's, for Google Hangouts, just to go back to the free option, I forgot to mention that it holds up to 100 people. So not that you would have not that you really could even have a 100-person council, but it does hold a lot of people. And maybe that information is valuable to you if you wanted to host a training or something like that in the future. So yeah, just in terms of registration and enrolling people, you can take the links to these sign-up sheets if it's a Google form, or if it's a sign-up form that you create through MailChimp, you can copy and paste the link like I did for signing up for this. And you can put it in your Instagram bio or share it on Facebook or send it in an email or send it as a text message to get your people registered. A benefit to doing these kinds of things also is that you could build your email list in your community by requiring an email address or taking in an email address that someone provides in order to be a part of it. So that's an advantage, although holding a council is more of a service that you might provide to your community to be in support of the collective, because if you really wanted to use offering something for free as a way to collect emails, you would do something more like a class, because you would want to encourage the most amount of people that could possibly give your email address, if that makes sense. So I think that's all for the class. And I'm going to be sending a few additional things out. There's someone who took notes on the class, so I'm going to send that with this class. But I wanted to let you all know that I offer one-on-one mentorship, and I have a limited number of spaces available right now. I think I have one or two, maybe there's one right now opening up. I may have another opening up soon. But I offer really, really powerful one-on-one mentorship support for folks who are needing to really get in gear with being in service to the world and shining and blossoming into your gifts, and making an impact and making a livelihood. Really like lighting a fire under your butt to really do that. Step into your leadership and support you, and just like clearing out all those limiting beliefs and doubts and anything that's in the way of you doing that. So I offer one-on-one mentorship, which will share some links to. And then I'm having like I mentioned before, a 3-day intensive May 8th through the 10th in California, facilitation and leadership, which there's an option of joining a 3-month journey of which will support you in going deeper into your career and supporting you in figuring out how to do enrollment really well, how to monetize, and how to how to build a whole livelihood and life around being bringing groups together and being a facilitator and holding you accountable to your goals that you set, kind of like a group mentorship container for 3 months. So I would love for you all to sign up for that. As many of you who are interested, actually I think there's 8 spaces available left for the 3-month journey. So please let me know if you have questions about that. And then for those of you who happen to be in the Midwest, I'm offering a 1-day immersive nature experience called Wild Sovereign Soul in Michigan on April 5th. So if that's of interest to you, or if you know someone else that is in the area, please send that to them. And just like I said to all the other people that joined, the best gift that you can give me really is to share your reflections and your feelings about this workshop, if it left an impact on you, what you gained from it, and just really helping to share the work that I do and the things that I offer, and supporting these messages to be spread by shouting me out and telling people how awesome you think this workshop was, and just following me on Instagram, Sister Stone Leadership. I'm also launching my EP called Reciprocal Relations coming up in the next month. That's going to be incredible, and that will need help being shared as well. But yeah, just your sweet words and sharing of your experience with me and my work is super appreciated. So as you can probably tell, I'm feeling a little tired after doing the live and then recording this shorter version for you. So I'm going to jump off, but I'm really sending you guys so much love, and really just wanting you all to take care of each other and tune into the deeper call right now for what we're needing to do as a human species right now, what your individual role and contribution is in this time of this great unraveling of the earth and our human species and ecology, and how you can be of service and be someone who can be a way shower for the world, and be gentle with yourself, tend to your family, stay close to your loved ones, and just be tender with yourself during this time. So lots of love. Thank you so much for signing up for this, really your willingness to support in this way. Oh, one last thing before I go. Actually, I had every single person in the workshop tell me who is going to be facilitating one of these councils for their virtual councils for their community within the next week. And I think there was about 10 people or so that said that they would be doing it. And so if you are planning on holding a virtual council after hearing my workshop, and I'm encouraging you to do so, please send me the link of the registration and tell me about your council, because I would love to share it through my social media to help encourage people to join your council, and also just to hold you accountable so I can know that it's happening, and that what I am offering is actually creating a ripple effect, and that people are taking up on the knowledge that I'm sharing and putting it into practice. So let me know what workshops, what councils you are holding. Okay. Have a beautiful rest of your weekend. I hope this was incredibly fulfilling and inspiring to you. Please stay in touch with me. Please, any feedback, thoughts, comments, questions, I'm here for it. Okay. Much love.